Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Dragon Reviewed. We are, as we were last week, reviewing Season 3 of The Wheel of Time. We are currently on Episode 4, which was named The Road to the Spear. What did I say? Did I say
No,
the
nothing.
wrong
I'm
thing?
being
Did I
silly,
say
man.
four?
You're good.
Oh, I thought I said the
He's
wrong
being your hype
episode, but
man.
there you go. Right. As always, I'm Cam. This is Kyle and Christine. I'll talk to you a little bit about us in a minute, but Kyle, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit more about the channel?
Yeah, you guys, Genreverse YouTube channel, lots of geek pop culture content. Oh, the screen is in front of me. I can use that. It's long story. Anyways, reactions, reviews, podcast covering most everything in geek pop culture entertainment. If you're into it, so are we. What we talk about here, we write about, mostly Cam, but myself included, Christine occasionally, write about at lrmonline.com. It could be, should be, will be your number one stop for all entertainment news, needs and opinions, reviews, celebrity interviews, and more at the LRM YouTube channel. And hey, if you're into soccer, Cam does a soccer podcast, football, over on Genreverse Sports. You can access all of those here on the Genreverse home tab down at the bottom. Yeah.
Yep.
Back to you, Cam.
Lots of stuff. And you'll also find, if you're really interested in what we thought of Season 2 and even before, then you can find that stuff on there as well, because we have been doing this since Season 1. But here we are, finally at an episode that, as a book fan, that I've kind of wanted to see on screen adapted for some time. I will start off by saying we are doing spoilers. So I've read the books. Christine and Kyle have not read any of the books. They're just watching the show and reacting to it, as we go along.
Yeah, you cut out, so I'll reiterate: no book spoilers, show spoilers only. Yeah, you kind of cut out there. It's not your fault.
We will, I think, based on what we've kind of chatted behind the scenes, we might talk about the lore a little bit this week, but that's because that's opened up a little bit now to us. Because of the events that happened in this week's episode. But, as always, we're going to start with what you guys thought. So I think we started with, I can't remember who we started with last
Christine,
time.
you
so
go
who
first.
wants to go first?
Oh, me?
Christine,
Okay.
what did you think of episode 4?
A little frustrating, but I'm trying to come at it with a little bit of understanding, because you've got cultures that are just tight knit. So for me, it's just why are you given this task when it's painfully obvious to me that you can't fulfill this task. So seeing back on the history of all of this while Rand is experiencing it, there was a little frustration, but it was really cool to see, and it was intense. But yeah. I liked it.
There was lots of times where I was reminded of conversations we've had on some of our anime reactions. If you even remotely like anime, I suggest you check out some of our reactions. Vinland Saga, great historical fiction, so it's not fantastical really at all. But set amongst real world events in the early 11th century, Vikings, England, freaking Danes and whatnot. There's a lot of discussions that happen dealing with pacifism, just fights, just killing, unjust fights, unjust killing. And I was sitting there having flashbacks to conversations, good stuff, similar in that series. And I just love how everything is a bunch of peaceniks and women's fault. Blame the hippies and the women. No, it was a really good.
To be fair, the men had. Had their own share of it, but there's blame. I think there's absolutely blame to go both ways, and I think some people were critical of the Age of Legends flashback from Season 1. I think where it kind of looked as if it's all the men's fault and the women were absolutely fine. And I think what this episode shows is that's just a point of view, but actually. There's fault on both sides, absolutely.
Like everything in real life, it's gray, it's wibbly, it's wobbly, it's not defined lines, and much to like they showed in Rand's steps back through time, there's a dozen different points of failure in this. There was a dozen different ways things could have gone differently, but they didn't. And you can see how each thing builds on each other, and it was a great episode.
And then the question becomes, like, we kind of think as if it didn't go well, but then we have to think about, but then there's the prophecies. There's Rand being in the right place at the right time. There's the Aiel being where they need to be. Rand at the right place in the right time. So, you know, there's something.
I don't mean that it could be. It could have been different. I don't mean that it could have been differently in story, but we as outside observers can see where, well, if you had done something, so devoid of the prophecy part, more from an outsider point. But that's exactly how real life is, though. I mean, you can go look at almost any historical thing and be like, if this one or two little things change, imagine the differences. And the further back you get, the things you have to kind of like change become less and less on each time, because you're getting closer and closer to the original sin, if you will. And that was pretty cool stuff to see. And,
you know, in terms of obviously what we get to see, I mean, I heard somebody compare Mern, as in Lanfear, as you know, to kind of Oppenheimer. If we think about Oppenheimer in the real world scenario, because when they first blew the atomic bomb, remember, obviously we've all seen the film recently, those history buffs will know a little bit more about that anyway.
I didn't see the movie yet, but I know the story quite well.
Chance that we're
going to ignite the atmosphere on fire.
Yes, I mean, they didn't know, you know, that was a potential risk. And, you know, we see a similar kind of event, somebody's, you know, for purely scientific reasons and possibly even altruistic reasons, you know, it's hard to kind of define that, is looking for a new power source. That, you know, it's scientists doing scientific stuff, but the end result is it's one of those rare chances when it goes as bad as it possibly could go, you know.
I don't know if remind me to come back to Lanfear's moment there, when she sends what's his name away in that Death Star. Remind me to come back to that.
Okay. Before the end of the show, you mean, or just sometime?
Like when we get past grades and stuff like that. What you're going to bring up next?
Okay. Yeah. When we're kind of having a chat. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess that's where we should go next. Then is what grade did we give this?
Well, what were your thoughts?
Your reasons for it? I mean, I gave it. I'll start by giving my grade, and that might make sense because I gave it an A+. So I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's a moment that for me woke the series up for me as a book reader. So it was like, you know, I just couldn't see the hook until I realised that there was a lot more going on here than what I'd first seen. And actually, this was quite different from most other fantasy series. It was a little bit different. And so Ruidian, you know, and that kind of whole stepping back in time was one of my favourite moments in the book from one of my favourite books, which is what they're covering this season. So I think they adapted it really, really well. And I think most book fans I've spoke to, like, online since the show, agree with me that it was really well adapted. There are, as always, you can't shoot everything. I covered a story for LRM Online today of Rafe Judkins talking about there was a couple of moments that were in the books in terms of the flashbacks. So there was more flashbacks in the books, basically. And he was talking about how there was 2 that he had written, but due to production costs, budget, timing, they couldn't fit it all in, so he had to choose to cut a couple, and those were the ones that he cut that he felt had the least impact on you guys as non-book readers following the kind of path along. But I think they made some really, really good choices in terms of how they shot it. And the other thing, I loved the way everything was reversed this week. And I don't know how much you noticed it, but we didn't get a cold open. We got a warm open and then a cold episode kind of thing. So if you think how that normally works, they reversed that. So we start off the first few minutes before we get the titles are almost just like a complete carry-on from the previous episode, and then once we go into Ridian, it's just focused on Ridian for that point till the end. The titles as well, the wheel normally turns clockwise when they do the little tune at the start after the cold open. They reversed it, and the music was also reversed as well. So there was a lot of really nice touches that they put into it. And I liked the way they shot some of it, especially Moiraine's sort of future stuff that was kind of rotating around in a wheel and stuff like that. That was artistically quite strong way to kind of show all that. And I just thought the glass columns and Ridian, it all just looked cool to me. So yeah, that's my grade. I loved it. Probably one of my favourite episodes of the series so far. Christine, what was your grade and why?
Oh man, I would probably give it an A. Obviously there's some things that, are still a little difficult for me to grasp. It's like a lot of information. It looked really cool. Like the pillars, just the whole tone of it was really interesting. I did have a little bit of an issue with, is it Avienda? Is that her name? Her attitude, like, it's still not warming up, and it's just kind of frustrating. Like, I'm not expecting, like, her to just throw her hands up in the air like, yay, this is great, but it's kind of like I'm still kind of wondering about her. Like, I'm wondering why she's still kind of closed off with him and with Rand. And it really sucks that she's had to let go of so much to serve this purpose. Yeah. But I kind of wasn't sure if she would make it or not. I wasn't sure if they would eliminate her, storytelling.
Yeah, like she would make it through the columns or something like that. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. I think it's an interesting way. We see that transition with Avienda from a warrior essentially to being a wise one, and I think they've done the wise ones really well in this show. I just love the way they've done the Aiel. Actually, it kind of you could do it wrong, and they've really kind of picked the right actors, given the right kind of tone and performances, like the wise ones. So she needs to go from being a brash warrior who can have a duel with Lan, have a tumble with Elaine whenever she wants, and then become a wise one, which is a leader. They lead the Aiel. They kind of make the decisions. Again, it's a matriarch, although they have clan chiefs, so there's always a man that's a clan chief, but it's the kind of the wise ones that they boss the clan chiefs kind of thing. That's how it works. So they make the peace, they decide when they're going to go to war, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's an interesting journey that we've only seen the start of, I think. So that's why it might seem a bit green. Another thing I was just going to mention is that I think it's okay that you don't fully get it as well. And I think even the showrunner was talking about that. We didn't necessarily expect everybody to fully understand everything,
They want us to be thirsty for more.
Yeah, there'll be little bits more that'll add to it, and you'll understand it more as you go forward. And plus, if you do watch it again, you'll find a lot more understanding each time you watch just that one episode, I think.
Yeah, we did, because it was, going forward and going back. So we did touch on the episode again, and I was able to grasp more seeing earlier on in the episode, but there's still what all is going on and we're wanting to find out more.
I always think that's a lot easier to take in a book, than it is visually, because you only get to see it that one time, and it's like, visual's great, but it's much easier to sit and read something carefully in a book and follow along and go, all right, before you read the next sentence or something like that.
So, reread it and not having to fight the rewind aspect of it.
Yeah.
I would give this as close to an A+ without giving it an A+ as possible for a couple of reasons. And this is coming again just from a show only aspect. Avienda, did I say it right, or did I screw it up?
Correct. Yeah. No.
Okay.
That's
when
it,
she has her big like reveal, oh, you're really supposed to go be a wise one. You're not supposed to be this long-term warrior. I felt like that was so quick. There was not enough. There was no hint of conflict beforehand, and then it was like, well, I don't wanna. Okay, fine, I'll go do it. It just kind of felt
rushed, maybe. Or?
Rushed, maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure, and I'm sure there might be some stuff written that we just took as like banter, or there might have been some things in previous conversations, like with Elaine. Is that the redhead?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe conversations with her where some stuff was maybe mentioned, but if you weren't a little savvy, you might have missed it. But it did just come off as like, but I don't wanna. Okay, fine. And it just, I didn't feel that there.
And I think you may be right. I think it's difficult for me to say, and I'll explain the reason why it's difficult for me to say. But I think also we are in quite a race against time to get content into this, and I think they have to put things in places, and it definitely was a longer conversation, all this happening in the books, but it happens about the same time in the books, but there's more time, as you would expect. But I think the other part of it is that the Ale are a little bit different from everybody else in terms of that they're quite abrupt, so the way they are with each other is quite different, and they kind of view Avienda as very childlike at this point. She's like a petulant child, and it's time for her to grow up and put the spear away and become a wise one, because she can obviously, you've seen that she can channel, so she's obviously she's got that ability, that skill, and that she therefore she's kind of chosen to go down that path. That's just her doing her duty and everything like that. But she doesn't want to, because the Maidens of the Spear like being, they're part of a culture. And once she comes out of that, it's like she's no longer part of that little subgroup anymore. They view her differently, and now she's part of a new peer group where she's the lowest person on the chain.
Like they get to go out and have adventures, and she's stuck inside, and like that would suck.
And I would like to see some of that like conflict, and like even if it's more personal for them as the audience, I feel like we should have gotten a little bit more of a taste, and it shouldn't have felt so. I think
you'll understand more about how she feels about the whole Rand situation as we go further on as well. Obviously not going to say anything, but I think that's content we might see even in this season.
I know the importance of showing us, why they wear face masks when they kill, why they don't use a sword, and but I was starting to get like solo moments, and I was like, okay, I got it. I'm tracking. We're checking off a bunch of boxes here. Not necessarily a bad thing, because people need to see it and whatnot. But some of it was a little just too on the nose, maybe. We're like, hey, make sure you got that. Did you catch that? Did you catch why they don't do this, or why they do that? Okay, you got it. Good. So both showing and telling sometimes, and that was kind of
I can
grating.
Understand that. I think when you've got a show that's got to appeal to quite a large audience, I think sometimes they have to telegraph some moments that you and I don't need telegraphed,
right?
Because we're used to watching TV at a certain level. Some people just watch it with half the brain switched off, and I get that though completely.
And then the other gripe is one of cost and efficiency, and that was the blood and all the wonderfully shot, like you said, wonderfully planned, shot, and edited turns of the wheel, and seeing death after death. But the CGI blood, man, I know squibs can be expensive and it's messy, and you got to rely on it all going well. But CGI blood is something that stands out so bad. And it really was, like, because we watched it twice, like she said. And every time I'm just like, it looks like you guys just reused some of these same assets and maybe flipped them horizontally or something. It was so
or just
not
like
good.
Like another take of it. Where to me, I kind of liked that, the CGI blood, because like the scene, like the repeating of the deaths and all of this going on, it kind of feels odd. So it kind of like adds to it, in my opinion.
That's kind of what I was going to say, which is a personal opinion, though, isn't it? You know, and you know, well,
I like my gore realistic. Damn it!
I liked it, kind of the fact that it almost felt kind of unreal, you know, in some ways, in the way that it was shot and some of the stuff as well. Interesting story about how they kind of shot that, but the showrunner was talking about how when they were filming all other scenes with other characters in the rest of the season, they were kind of waiting by going, can we borrow this actor for a minute? And then they were quickly get them into a costume, take a shot of somebody killing Moraine, or, you know, or let's get a quick shot of Lanfear in bed with Moraine, or Rand in bed with Moraine and stuff like that, you know. What did you think of that part of it when you see Rand and Moraine kind of in bed together? Because some people online have been like already like that was ick kind of thing. It didn't. I think
it's just a turn of the wheel.
Exactly.
I didn't know how to, like, it didn't make me feel icky. I was just like, okay, so in this one, things just go that differently. Like,
yeah,
almost anything's possible type deal. I didn't look at it as in the Rand and Moraine that we know. It's variants. Marvel fans.
It's all various possibilities that sort of could happen, and whenever that does happen, it doesn't go well. So you know, that's something that Moraine comes out of that experience and she goes, well, we ain't going down that route, you know. So it's not going to happen. It's, you know, it's not something that is going to be picked back up again, and I think it is supposed to almost be a little icky, you know, because it doesn't feel right. And I think it was in the books as well, you know, when she mentioned, it's not as clear in the books, but she mentions that that's not an option she would be choosing because she knows, because she's seen that possibility not working out. So anyway,
so for some technical stuff and for some we'll say writing, editing type stuff, this would be like an A plus minus. It's really good. It's the best episode of the season and one of the best of the series by all means, but still with some issues.
Yeah. So in terms of some questions then, so, you know, obviously what you now realise after watching this week's episode is that in many ways Wheel of Time is as much as a sci-fi story as a fantasy story kind of thing.
Science fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, which is Star Wars. I mean, if you look at Star Wars kind of does it the same way, but different. Like it's all the advanced technologies there and everything like that, but there's some sort of mystical, magical powers. And Wheel of Time, you know, there is mystical, magical powers, but they study it scientifically. Like, you know, it's not just like, ooh, magic powers, who knows? It's something that they study and, you know, and they use it to learn about the universe and become far more scientifically advanced than we are. So even when you see that, they call it the Sharon, which is the Death Star type thing, all right, which is basically just floating there, you know, under the power of the one power.
I was gonna be like, I'm out here with a scythe,
spaceships get up and down to it and stuff like that.
I'm out here with a sickle, and you guys can't get. You got flying contraptions up there, and you can't give me a freaking tractor. I'd be mad.
Break the point is they don't want it.
I know.
Exactly.
I
know. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
Around.
Yeah.
He says it. I was trying to pause.
Oh.
Whenever I get into conversations on reactions, I have to pause it. No, he even talks about enjoying the feel of the wheat. I was just joking.
Yeah, he did that with me. I'm like, well, I think it's supposed to be like a cultural experience. Yes. And he's like,
I don't think like they have to. It's like, oh, you must do this. This is your job. Oh, 95 on the scythe. You know what I mean? They're all happy, and those choro trees, they do make people more peaceful. So as humans, we all have, you know, you get angry, aggressive people, really mad people. The trees actually being everywhere actually helps at that point to calm everybody actually the fuck down. So we're not quite as bloodthirsty a society as we are in this age kind of thing. We're more advanced morally, shall we say. So that's why they have these Aiel who are they've decided to be servants to the Aes Sedai. And like they've taken these vows of no violence or anything like that because they let the Aes Sedai deal with all that type of stuff. And really, they were in a society where they literally had no weapons. So before this point, it wasn't until the whole Dark One's prison being opened up that they even had weapons. So they like learned how to fight with swords and things like that again because they knew it from history, like stuff they'd found from our age and stuff like that, but they didn't know necessarily about guns and rockets or anything like that. So yeah, really, Meryn fucked everybody up.
Well, I mentioned remind me about that when later on, and so here's a good enough point when she's talking to Ancient Rand.
Mm-hmm.
When she's talking to Ancient Rand, she seems so sad, and she sends him away as if she knows exactly what's going to happen. And I don't know, it's been a couple years since we saw season 2. I don't remember if they've mentioned how, why, yada yada. We know she was in love with Luz. But how long ago was Luz from that point?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it was before it. So at this point, at the point of the boarding into the hole, her and Luz are not together again because you kind of hear us, like, it's almost like a little tiny barb she has when she says, his name.
More power than him.
Power won't just be with those like Luz Therin and his Aes Sedai. She's an Aes Sedai as well. In fact, she's the most powerful female channeler of that age. Men are slightly above. Luz is the most powerful male channeler.
Right.
They got together. They were lovers. They both had different goals. They moved apart.
Right.
She wasn't pleased with that. He met someone else, got married, and was madly in love with this other person and quite happy, and I think she was kind of side-eyeing that situation at the time. As to like, did she know what was going to happen or anything like that? We can discuss that freely because there's no answer in the books to that either. Okay. That's left open to us to debate. I don't think so, would be my theory on it. I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that, because she wasn't working alone. It wasn't just like her on her own. There's a team of other scientists there. And it's not as if they all went to like the dark or anything like that.
Well, no, but you can find out. You can, and I know I've seen this done in stories before, but where a team is working towards something they believe is good and altruistic, but someone on the team has ulterior motives and has figured out how to use this to, we're gonna do this archaeological dig. Everyone's really happy to see the artifacts, but I know the super dark secret demon that I'm going to summon once it. So I took her sadness and her sending Ancient Rand away as I know something bad at least might happen.
Oh, yes, I didn't get that.
I think it's slightly different. I think what it is she thinks she's going to change the whole power structure that they have in that age by giving this free power is going to be available to just anybody that wants to use it. So they won't need the one power anymore, and Luz Therin won't be as high up as what he is just now. And I think that's more her thinking. What we can say for definite is that she could have had no prior knowledge of the Dark One, because the Dark One's prison was completely intact. He could not touch. So he's always there all the time, but he could never touch the physical plane. By cracking that open, they found the point where the seal in the pattern was the very smallest, and they cracked in and they found the Dark One in there. So there's no way he could have been contacting her secretly or anything like that, because he had no way to touch the world until that point. But after that, that's when all the bad stuff starts to happen, because he can touch the world and he can influence people. So where that
but when was he in prison originally?
Well, it's a wheel, Kyle. Right?
Exactly.
So, so
that's what I'm saying.
He's always been there.
There's no way she doesn't.
Or beginnings to a wheel.
Then then there's ways for her to know. There's got to be some sort of bleed through or something. That's my thinking. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, you could say that. Theoretically, it is possible, given that there's the whole reincarnation thing, that she's going to come around, and maybe always her that bores the hole. So maybe there is something there. Maybe it's not instant, and that's the thing. You could argue that, and I don't think anybody could say definitely no. All we could say for certain is that that one couldn't have been communicating with her personally beforehand, but whether she had some memory from a previous age, maybe possible.
Anyways, so that was something that I had noticed about that scene. I liked it. I did. I thought it was all really done well, except for those few things.
Cool.
So what was the part of the backstory that surprised you the most, guys? That's my last question for you today.
The Tinkers or Aiel?
Yeah, it is quite surprising to think that these two cultures are so diametrically opposed in terms of their cultures are actually come from the same thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
I did have... Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just saying that.
Oh, I did have some trouble following these lineages. So there's like almost two splits. There's the Aes Sedai have sealed the last male channeler and we just got attacked. We're done with this. We're splitting off. And then you have the peaceful ones that carried on, Dude and his grandson, where they found more to join their cult. I don't know, but they did. And they carried on. And then there's another split with the ones that chose violence, who seem to become dominant later on, and those peaceful ones. So I was having a bit of trouble following some of the lineage. And then when you get back even further to the 10,000 trees, individual trees being sent out, like what is that just 10,000 peaceful Aiel? Is that like, are the Aiel the core people of the entire planet in this age, so to speak, or was it 10,000 groups made up of everywhere? Because where's like the rest of the tree? Like you know what I'm saying? Like that lineage, I was having some issue following.
I understand what you mean. I think pretty much they kind of went all over the place, all over the world initially, and I think some of them would have ended up, just getting killed off, whatever. If you think about their lifestyle in terms of do no violence, not even stop someone from hurting you or robbing you, it's not very conducive to a world which has gone bad and everybody's, every man for himself kind of thing. That culture is just not going to survive. And that's ultimately what happened to them, and why the Tinkers are just now, all that's left of the Tinkers is a small band of wandering people, and they've forgotten what they're even looking for. Like they talk about looking for the song, which is going back when they used to sing harvests in. They would use the power of singing to help grow trees and all that, and the ogres would help them with that. But they don't even know that now. So it's like figuratively they're just completely lost, and they're looking for some sort of answer, and they just don't know what it is.
So it was 10,000 Aiel wagons.
I think just basically wagons.
So they could be all over the place at one point.
Theoretically, but the ones that we follow are the ones that became the Aiel of today, because we follow their paths. So essentially, only one of those trees made it to that city and was planted. Of all those trees that were sent out, it was just that one, and it just so happens that was the one that the Sangreal was inside as well. And in terms of when the Aiel started, when they started with the face coverings and the spears and that all happened, their society became more dominant than the other one because it was more successful.
Yeah.
Because they defended themselves. They became proud warriors. They lived by their own rules. They set their own rules up. So they got people to come with them, and then they had kids, and they had successful societies, where the other ones just basically fizzled away into nothing in the end. So there's almost none of them that were true faithfuls left. They're all just the warrior ones now.
And did I miss why the Aiel way back when Luin, I think, was our Joan Joe something. Joe Mama.
I went there too.
But when he gets the orb from the lady, why do they agree? One, why agree to stay pacifistic?
That was my question.
Why even agree to do that? And then how did the Aes Sedai expect them to remain pacifists and not defend them? Because it sure seems like the frickin' Aes Sedai didn't defend them so damn well.
Mostly by the Aes Sedai not being as wise as they think they are and making a lot of mistakes. I think that's what we can account that for. They really just sent them away. They didn't know what they were doing. They thought that they bring peace to places and that they may bring peace to wherever they ended up. Realistically,
like the trees would
it did
pacifies
nothing.
The world.
By the time that Aes Sedai who was leading the Latra, we see her later on, and that's like 800. She's like 800 years old at that point. She's really, really old. Things have changed for her a little bit by then because she also is aware of the prophecies and stuff like that to do with the dragon. There's some of that. The Karathian cycle has started to come out, and the world's in a different place. Like I think they honestly thought everything would be okay. They didn't think it would get as bad as what it really did, and not just until they killed the last male channeler, but really after that, society kept going down the way rather than up the way, and we end up in a 17th century style culture instead of a 24th century style culture.
Yeah, so this whole episode is just nothing but human error, and it was interesting to see.
Ideologues.
Yeah.
These people just weren't used to what they came across. Like this is it's almost a perfect society, right? They just have no war. There's no need for they don't even need electricity because they use the one power for everything. So it powers their devices and all that sort of stuff. They just live in this perfect world. They can grow more food than we can grow in our place. They can travel off world. They can do there's more stuff that I won't get any that they can do as well. There's some more sci-fi elements to come.
I didn't know they could go out into outer space.
Well, I mean, what would be stopping them? They have literal, I mean, they can build.
They're flying Death Stars around on the planet, so why not, Kyle?
There are a few other parts to them which haven't been revealed yet, which I won't get into as well. But there's some more sci-fi elements to come up as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess they just didn't think things would go that bad. They weren't used to it, and the whole when the Dark One came, they had the War of Power, right, which was like the goodies versus the baddies, right? So the Dark One gets so many people on his side. They create evil monsters and stuff like that. The good guys fight them, and we saw the start of that in season 1, like when Lewis Stern's trying to encourage Latra to join him, the men and the women together, to strike at Shao Ghul, which is basically see where that all broke apart in the sky and stuff like that. That's where the blight all starts emanating from. So that's like the concentrated place of the Dark One. So they attack there, but what happens is, we know from the other parts of the story, is it's on their own. So it's Sidon that gets tainted by the Dark. They imprison all the Forsaken, but Sidon gets tainted. So what happens is all the men just go daft, and they're all these really powerful channelers, and they think everything will be fine, but the women can't control them, and that's what they're saying. Like, we're literally killing our own brothers here. And she's saying, well, like, it was one of your sisters who opened the door in the first place, kind of thing. What can we do? But basically the world gets turned upside down, and it's just not in the same place, and you've got these peaceful people just wandering about in their wagons with trees, and they've got virtually got no chance.
Eve just had to be hungry, huh?
I was thinking of the original Aiel being like the dodo bird. Where it's like, how can you just be that silly? Okay, fine.
I can't. I don't think we can understand it in our kind of society because we know to stick up for ourselves and fight. But
we're used to violence.
Like you said, why did they think why did they agree to because it's all they knew. That's what they already followed, the way they live already, their whole lives basically. So will you keep to this? Yeah, sure. They just trust whatever the Aes Sedai tell them because they're wiser than them, and they do whatever they're told, kind of thing. And that's, did lead them to some painful times, I'm afraid.
Good episode, though.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's any other final words?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think we covered it all. Let us know in the comments, guys, what questions you might have for us. If we don't answer them in the comments section, we'll answer them in the next episode, and would prefer to answer some in the next episode from you guys. So yes, please do.
And let us know if we get anything wrong again, because we get some of that last week, and that's always good, because I've read the books, but like my expertise level in Tolkien is up here. My wheel of time is down here somewhere. There's a big difference.
I was gonna say
a wheel of time there. There's some people are, because I've only had there's such a long book series. I've only read them once.
Yeah, exactly. It's like asking me to discuss like 90s Marvel versus modern Marvel. Like there's enough that still carries over, but I'll talk 90s and early 2000s Marvel all day. And that's the comics, guys, not the movies, because 90s and 2000s were rough times. Kind of like Marvel movies today, but, whatever. If you guys want to...
very much, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you guys want to hear more geeky pop culture discussions, subscribe here on the Genreverse. It is a lot of anime, but we do other things. You can check out all of our old podcasts. Playlists are a great way. Look, all of our old horror movie reviews on, well, not all of them, but some of them there. The playlists are a really great way to access our content, because it's broken down by type, show. So, yeah, good stuff. Genreverse Sports YouTube channel, if you want to hear Cam talk about Newcastle winning the first time in like 69 nice years. And, of course, LRMonline.com. Oh, Genreverse Sports, the Watch More Football podcast. And then LRMonline.com for all your entertainment news. A lot of it written by Cam, sometimes a little bit by me. And, listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from.
There's Wheel of Time news, I'll be covering it, and I'll do written reviews on there as well if you want to get into a bit more detail.
Yeah, I keep forgetting to mention, we do have the podcast side, so there you guys go. Right there. See? Stuff. All right, Cam. I'm done talking.
All right. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll be back next week to review episode 5. Hope it's as good as this one. I don't think it will be, but you never know.
Setting expectations. Bye.